Hello and welcome to FAtiMA-Toolkit's Quickstart guide. My name is Manuel Guimarães and let's go on with it. So first of all, the objective of this guide is to help you understand the basics of using the toolkits. I've also decided to record this video in case you have any questions or doubts. And sometimes while doing this exercise, I'll deviate a little bit about regarding in comparison to what I've written in the slides. So we want to create an interaction scenario based on the story that is being shown. And it's a very simple story. Jen had lunch with Kim. After they finished lunch, Jen paid a $20 bill, 20 euro bill. Kim was pretty happy afterwards, and Kim said to Jen, let's do this again. And we will also use the simulator within FAtiMA-Toolkit to play this out. Okay. So this slide will have a couple of different things, such as the description, screenshots, the example, a task, and some tips or hints. And the first task is quite simple. We just need to open FAtiMA-Toolkit. You can extract it using the link shown in the slide, but once it's extracted, we need to open it, and I'll just minimize this slide so that it is easier to see what I'm doing. So once you've extracted the folder, you can open or run FAtiMA-Toolkit executable program, and here it is. It's supposed glory. Hopefully you can see it all right. Okay, so the first task is to open it, and we have successfully opened it. Sometimes it will be named as integrated authoring toolkit wf.exe. And this is its general organization. We have the scenario tab. So this is the characters over here. This is the scenario name and description. And then we have other relevant tabs that we'll be using, namely the cognitive rules and the character tab. So the first task is simple, is to write a name for the scenario. You can write the name here, tutorial scenario. And also here you can write implementing a short story. Something like this. And this is where the name and description is. The description is sometimes helpful to remind yourself of what we're doing here. And importantly, FAtiMA-Toolkit uses two different types of files to save the authored information. And we can also skip ahead and save the scenario. So the first type of file, these are all JSON files, but it's important that there's a distinction with them. We have the scenario file, which essentially stores every single information about the files, except the cognitive rules. Okay, so let's save it. And you can save it whatever you like, but I usually call it like scenario tutorial or something like this. I'm replacing it because I've recorded this many times. And then we have the cognitive rules file, which I can just go like this, new, and then rules, storage, something like this. And that's it. So now we are ready to make our own scenario and implement it, and it's already saved. Cool. So this is the task that we've just completed. We've created the new scenario, and make sure to name your files accordingly, like tutorial scenario or tutorial storage, so that you know that the different scenarios, the different files essentially. The scenario file stores every single information except the cognitive rules storage file, which only records the cognitive rules. And so what you can do is that you have a scenario with cognitive rules from another scenario that you've implemented in the past. All right, so let's start by implementing the story. Let's start with the characters. So there are two characters, Jen and Kim. This is pretty simple. You can just add characters here, Jen and Kim. And when you click on them, you'll see that the character tab will be open, and you can see here the internal state of the characters. Now, all characters have a knowledge base, an emotional state, an autobiographic memory, and some goals. However, the knowledge base is where you're going to focus most of our work, and here the beliefs are stored. And we can save like properties of agents and objects or their relationships with each other, but essentially it stores the agent's beliefs around the world, about the world. And the beliefs can be used to represent tons of information, and because Fatima allows you to write anything, you can write the same belief in a number of different ways. For instance, if I have 3 oranges, I can write it differently. I can just say oranges equal have 3, but they almost have a parenthesis, and that's why the default one comes with a parenthesis. So let's write something about our story. Let's write that Shan has money. So has money equals to 20, because that's what we wanted to do. All right, so Jan now believes she has 20 money. Perfect. We can also write other things like she likes Kim. It's also true. And that she is in a restaurant. Is in a restaurant. And or like I can just write in restaurant, or I can write location restaurant equals true, something like that. And don't forget to save, just to make sure everything's well. And now that we have our beliefs, we can write an action, right? So Jan had lunch with Kim. And so actions are ways to produce changes in the world, and these actions usually have conditions. They also have targets and priority, but we'll get to that in a bit. But for instance, if I wanted to write the agent will flirt with someone if they like, and if it's sunny, then I could write the action name flirt, the target would be a person, and then I could write as the conditions is sunny equals true, and that she likes this target person. And now I'm going to show you how we would implement the have lunch action rule. So I would go here to the emotional decision making, and I could just write have lunch. Oh, I have lunch, sorry about that. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to write the variable here. I'm going to write person, okay? Now, if the agents were trying to see if they could execute this action, it will return as an error because they wouldn't know what this person is. However, the conditions are good because of 2 things. Number 1, it allows me to tell when we're going to execute the action, but we're also be able to tell variables. So I'm able to say what the conditions must be met for this person to be an agent. So for instance, I could go like this. Likes, and then the variable person equals true. And now that I'm already at it, I could just say in restaurant is also true, right? Because I also want them to have lunch only when they are in a restaurant, right? And so what's going to happen is that Chen is going to look at this rule and go like, well, I like Kim. Can I replace it? So he will replace the person with Kim, and then the target will also be Kim, because the variable affects both of these things, so the conditions and the template of the action. Okay. So now that we have our basic action, we can test things out in the simulator. And the simulator, while I have this very descriptive graphic about where things are, I can also just go here and press start and see that we have our characters and the M represents their moods, but we have Jan performing to Kim, have lunch. So we know that our action is working. Additionally, I can also play as Jan, and I can go like, oh, I have this action here to have lunch with Kim. And I can also go here and check each other's internal state, like their emotional state, their goals, their memory, some events already happen, and etc. And particularly their action, their knowledge base. And so we have already verified that we are able to, so far it's working. The thing is, Jen just performs to Kim the same action all over again. And because there's no stopping state, this would be if I'm playing as a person, as their person, this wouldn't change because their knowledge base is the same. So let's actually enable a change in the world. And this is done in the world model. So it handles the consequences of each action, right? So what we want to do next is to simply create a rule for when this action happens. So when this action happens, these are the effects. So let's go. When have lunch happens, we want them to have, let's say, actually, let's add a belief here that they need to have food, right? Has food equals true. And now let's go here to the character, to Jan, and let's go like has food equals true. Perfect. All right. So now here she has food, but then what I'm going to say is that when this happened, they no longer have food. Has food is now false. And one particular thing that happens in Fatima is that when you use an asterisk, this represents anything. So if you want to, for instance, say that anything is accepted here, then I'll just say use this. For instance, here, the subject, it doesn't really matter what the subject of the target is, this will always trigger. However, I could do something like very specific where I could say, oh, this is only happens if Chen is the one that made the action. Or for instance, I could say, oh, this only happens if Kim is the target of the action. And I could also just say that, oh, the observer agent Jan is going to be the one be affected, like something like this. And so, for instance, you can see the changes here. Jan performed to Kim have lunch, and you can see here that has food for Jan has already changed, and for Kim nothing has changed. Oh, she has food, false, cool. All right. Yeah. So for now, let's just keep things simple. Let's just keep here the asterisk, and that's it. All right. So perform Kim, so perfect. So so Jen is only having lunch with Kim once, which is good because the food is now false. You can see this thing moving if you play as Jen, like has food is now true, but when it happens, has food is now false, and you can see the effects here happening. Like event registered was this event, and then Jen has food equals false, and Kim has food is also false. So both of them are detecting this. Okay. So what's our next task? Our next task is to say that Kim was pretty happy afterwards. So let's say that Kim was pretty happy afterwards, and this is about emotional appraisal. So Fatima follows the OCC model, which uses an appraisal process where an input, an event, like we've seen here in the simulator, like when something happens, this is an event that gets triggered, so it gets sent to all the characters. So action ended that where Jen had lunch with Kim. So this would be evaluated by an appraisal variable, and the output would be a particular emotion. For instance, if it would be a negative desirability, it would cause distress. If it's a positive desirability, then it causes joy. And this is like a table of how different appraisal variables generate different emotions. But let's now create this cognitive rule where when I have lunch with someone that I like, or when I'm in a good mood, then it will generate an emotion. Okay. So some particular things. So here I need to add the have lunch. Lunch. And now I can do a couple of things here. I could define variables here where I say that the subject needs to be Kim, or like the target is Kim, like something like this. But I could also do another thing, which is use the self special keyword. So what I'm saying with this rule is that this rule only happens when I'm the target of this action. So I don't care about the subject, but I know that I must be the target of this emotion. So for instance, when Jen performs to Kim, have lunch, this rule will only be triggered with Kim, not with Jen, because Jen is looking at this and saying, oh, I wasn't the target of the action, so I don't care, but Kim will be. So what we're going to do is that I'm saying, okay, so Kim will detect this, and then I'm going to say that if I wanted to generate joy, it would be something like desirability 4. Okay, that's it. So here now in the simulator, you will see that when Jen performs to Kim have lunch, I'll go here to the emotional state. While Jen has nothing in her emotional state, I know that Kim is feeling joy. And you'll see that as I press continue, which means as time moves on, it will tend to 0. So Kim is feeling joy with 2.19 intensity, but she is feeling it. And every time this happens, she's going to feel joy. Okay, cool. So I kind of change a little bit the task, but I think you got it, right? I could also use variables if I wanted to, where I could say that, for instance, for this to happen, the subject, I would need to like the subject. For instance, likes something very simple. And now I don't think anything will happen because Kim does not like, or she doesn't know that she likes Jan. But I could go like this. Oh, character knowledge base likes Jan equals true, right? So that's good. All right. So we have our very basic emotional appraisal rule, and it's working. So we know that's working. So I'm just keeping and getting on with the lesson. And right now, essentially, Kim is starting to get happier every time Jen actually has lunch with her. However, we have another thing, which is paying the lunch. So let's create the pay the lunch action rule. So let's say pay, and the target, for instance, doesn't need to be a character. It could just be lunch. And I'm just going to have this rule where number one, she needs to have money. Like, let's say bigger than 10. And then I could also say that she can't have food, right? Has food equals false, actually. Oh, but let me think. Okay, yeah. So these are very, very basic conditions, right? So what I want to say is that this doesn't really make a lot of sense, because if she, let's say she didn't have food before going into the restaurant, then this would lead to a loop. Like I could also try to fix that restaurant. But let's say I should also have like a variable here that it tells if I've already paid or not, because if she pays once, then it doesn't make sense to pay again, right? And another thing here is that we can add a consequence to the world model, where we say that if she paid for, I want a subject, right? And then I could just say, well, if she paid, then she has money, and the money is now 10. And I'm going to say that the subject, whoever paid, is now 10. Now has 10 of money. I could subtract, but I won't do it because it would get a little bit tricky. Okay, perfect. So now we're good. Let's see. Jen performs to Kim have lunch, and then she pays, and she doesn't pay anymore because she doesn't have any more money, which is perfect. And we can see here that the emotional state of Kim, she's pretty happy about it, so that's great. I could also change, like here, the emotional appraisal, I could change like this for pay. Maybe it would make more sense, but I think she's just happy to have lunch with her friend. All right, so what about the conditions? Oh, we've already talked about this. We have the consequences, and finally, we can talk a little bit about dialogue. So dialogue in Fatima is handled by a very special speak action, which has 4 different parameters, and we can take a look at them here in the dialogues. And you'll see that when we want to add a dialogue action, it has all of these different parameters, but these are really simple once you get to use them. So let's say the current state essentially details the current state of the conversation. So it'd be like again, right? Because we want to say, let's do this again, response, and then I'll just go, let's do this again. Right? And what I'm going to say is that I'm going to say that if my character is in a good mood, so I'm going to add a new rule, and I'm going to go like speak, and then I'm going to use the exact same parameters, like again, response, minus, okay? And the target would be Chan. I don't need to get a lot messy. And then I could also say that speak, that my mood is bigger than 0. Okay, so what am I doing here? I'm using another special keyword to ask the agent what's the mood between them. So if Kim is feeling positive, then she will perform this action. If Jen is feeling positive, she will perform this action. Okay, so let's see what happens. I've saved. So it's pretty funny. So once Jen performs to Kim have lunch, Kim is in a positive mood, so she will ask, she will say, let's do this again, let's do this again. And you can see that she's feeling joy over here and that her mood is like 1.20. The mood is calculated across all the emotions. And so this is exactly what we wanted. We can also use the different dialogues and say like, same time next week. Oops. I'll save. And here, actually I don't think I saved. And you'll see that she will use different dialogues. So she's getting the same parameters. She's picking up these utterances because she can and because the action is telling her, okay, just pick one randomly from this one, right? So this is the very basic show of whatever you want for the dialogue to be. You could also use something else, which is a dynamic property, which I'm going to say now, is that instead of using here again and response, I could save the current state of the conversation in the character's beliefs, and I can just fill the rest across something. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to use something like this again. So I'm going to go like current state, next state, okay? And then I'm going to use something called valid dialogue. I'm going to like current state, next state. I'm going to go like this, equals true, okay? Now I need to make sure that this is correct because I don't remember exactly, but you can see here the list of dynamic properties, and I can also valid dialogue. So what I'm going to say is that these are special keywords that essentially the agents compute in runtime. So when I'm asking the mood, he will substitute this value by a number, and if this is correct, then he will accept this condition. And if these dialogue values are accepted, then he will substitute here. So let's see what happens now. Let's do this again. So it's working. And then I could even add other stuff like response, again, whatever. Okay, perfect. And now I think they would use whatever because they're not following a particular set. What would be cool is that you can do something like this, where dialogue state for Jan equals the current state. Okay, I just want to move this up, save. Okay, and then what I could do is that I could be like, nope, not on this one. I could go like this. Dialogue state for Jan would be like, I want it to start in again, and it would. So over here, if you follow the rhythm or the sequence, dialogue state for Jen is going to be equal to again. The mood will be positive in the case that she's already had lunch. And then the next state, we already know what the current state is, but the next state, essentially this function, what's going to do is that it's going to go over here and going to say, if my current state is again, what could the next state be? And I could even do something like this, where I could branch the dialogue. What? I could say, what? Yeah, something like this. What? When? Why? Whatever. And what would happen is that both of the options would be possible. But this is one way to branch the dialogue. Like what, when, why. Let's do this again. What, when, why, sometime next week. And essentially, Kim is saying just only using this tree. Okay. And another thing that would be also possible is that here in the world model, I could advance the conversation. So I could go like dialogue state with, for instance, Chen actually not this one, I would be like this, speak, and I could use like CS, something like this, but I know that the target is, actually know that this is like what I want to do. I could go like this, and then I could also go like dialog states with Chen. The new value is the next state, and then the observation would be the subject. Okay. And now what's going to happen is that every time there's a speak action, the dialog state, so the belief Kim has of the dialog state with Chen is going to not be again, but be response. Okay. So if my dialog state is response, then I'm going to say something like, let's do this again. And then the next time I'm going to do whatever. Same time next week, whatever. And then she's going to keep saying whatever or what, when, why. Because her knowledge base is that... okay, because I made it circular. See, okay, so she's coming here, but I could go like, what? And now I could go like, yep. Now we have something, a circular. What, when, why? What, when, why? Yeah, okay, let's do this again and whatever. Perfect. And she ends up here because she has no dialogues here in this state. Okay. Okay, so I hope I have cleared some of the doubts here, and I hope that I'm not too long. No, I'm not. And hopefully, if you have any questions, reach out to me, and I'll probably have other videos on this material, but just keep following the FAtiMA-Toolkit.eu website or go to the repo if you have any other questions. And I think hopefully you've done this tutorial and you're in a happy state because we had lunch. Kim said, let's do this again. Jen performed pay, and you can see that Kim is pretty happy about it. I could change this so that she's only happy when Jen paid, and the let's do this again will only come up afterwards, but I gave a little bit more of space and adjustments and everything. Okay, so thank you. See you next time.